You're listening to the WaxPackHero Sports Card Minute, a podcast where we discuss both the hobby and business sides of collecting. I'm your host, Mike Sommer, and I want to help you buy, sell, and trade your way into a collection you'll love. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the WaxPackHero Sports Card Minute. Today, I've got another interview for you, and it is with probably the most prolific sports card tweeter out there, Ivan Lovegren at Watch the Breaks. He's the co-host of the Go GTS live show, and he is constantly tweeting about sports cards on Twitter, obviously, and I love to watch when he goes live to talk about cards and to talk about business and to talk about life. And so I'm excited to bring an interview with him today, but I also want to invite you to check out Underdog Events and Collectibles. They're a new sponsor of the show. They are an online shop run by collectors for collectors. You can join their Facebook group by searching for Underdogs on Facebook. You can check in with them for great prices on breaks. They've got singles. They've got some newly released wax. And remember, they say always bet on the underdog. Look for them on Twitter and Instagram as well by searching UDogCollect. I appreciate them supporting the show, and I'd appreciate it if you checked them out. All right, now without any further ado, our interview with Ivan. Today we've got another special guest, and it is Ivan Lovegren, Watch the Breaks, as you might know him from Go GTS Live and Twitter. And so welcome to the show, Ivan.
Hey, great to be here, Mike. Thank you for having me today.
I've been really enjoying getting a chance over these last several weeks to get a chance to connect with several of the collectors, personalities, podcasters, whatever you want to call them, people in the hobby. And so I was glad that you were able to join me today to chat a little bit more. You're somebody that I have been following and paying attention to over the last couple of years. And so there's still some things about you that I don't know and will be new to me, and I'm sure new to some of the folks in the audience as well. And so thanks again for joining me.
Yeah, I'm excited actually. When we talked a little bit before and you told me what you were interested, I was a little surprised. I was like, oh, I get to talk about myself? Yes, let's do this.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So it's like a first date, Mike.
It is like our first little date here.
Yeah.
So speaking of that, how about we start with just a little bit about your collecting backstory? If I'm not mistaken, you grew up in Nebraska. And so I'd just be curious to know about your backstory. When you started collecting and all of that type of thing, and just kind of what got you into cards?
Well, so I started collecting when I was 4 years old. My first pack of cards, I pulled an Andre Dawson All-Star pop-up card, an insert, a hit, if you will, from the Cubs, which were my favorite team because my dad was from Chicago. And so I was hooked from that time on. 1989 Topps helped me learn how to read because I knew all the players, and so I would learn their names, the letters. Collected all the way through grade school, up through the baseball strike, and that was when I really started collecting football a lot. So like 1994 to like 97, I was chasing Darnay Scott, the Cincinnati Bengals wide receiver. I'm pretty sure I still have the world's preeminent Darnay Scott collection. I believe it's over 100 cards, which we didn't have a lot of money growing up, so I've gotten some flack for this, but I loved Collector's Choice because I could afford it. I don't think I bought a pack of 1989 Upper Deck until I was probably like 23 or 24 years old.
Sure.
So that was, sort of a typical childhood collector. But I did always take better care of my cards. I always had the sleeves, top loaders, all of that. But around high school, you get busy. You're actually playing sports. You get a job, and you work at Burger King 12 hours a week, and you've got school activities. So I just sort of fell out of collecting, as many of us did, and that lasted through college. Moved to Los Angeles after school to pursue a career in the entertainment industry. And I was making a little bit of money, for a single guy. And so maybe 2 or 3 times a year, I'd swing by this card shop and buy, a box of Flagship or a box of Topps Football. And I would literally open them and then put them back in the packs because I had nowhere to store them. I was living, a new apartment every year when they would raise the rent in LA. And so it wasn't until my future wife moved out to Los Angeles and we found actually our second time finding an apartment. We got this really great lucky deal and we moved in and I found there was this one cabinet or drawer, little closet space that we didn't have anything for. And I had these 6 or 7 boxes of cards with the packs still in them. And I said, hey, I've got a place for cards now. Maybe I could start collecting again. So I started sorting them. And here's the silly little kicker in the story. I was sorting the football cards and I found that I had 2 Mark Sanchez's that were the same card number, but had different pictures on the front. And I was so confused. I went out and I was like, let me find a Beckett. And I went on Beckett online and paid $1.99 to get pricing for that one card. And I found out the SP photo variations. And I thought that chase was so freaking cool that there was these cards that looked just exactly the same, but were way rarer. It was right after their second championship game appearance. It was before the butt fumble and all that. So I actually listed it online and sold it for like $40, which, now today that card's probably a $2 card.
Sure.
But that's what got me hooked back into it. So that was around 2011. Started picking up cards here and there. And then I discovered Twitter, which I think is one of the greatest sports card communities out there. The way that Twitter works just speaks to my brain more than the forums did. And yeah, so that was when I got really back into collecting. And then the Cubs drafted this guy, Chris Bryant. And I said, I'm gonna collect that guy. Got really into baseball. And yeah, now here we are.
And now I didn't hear basketball as a part of that. Did you collect basketball cards at all when you were younger?
I did, but not with the sort of zeal that I collected baseball at first and then football later. Always just a little more distant. I mean, I had a lot of 1990 hoops, obviously loved that, but I really missed out on the big basketball boom in the mid 90s. Totally missed out on that. And the other really funny thing is, a lot of people know me by the hashtag collect fail, and we'll get to that in a minute. But my very first collect fail, I would say, was that when I was a kid, it was still the late 80s, very early 90s when we would go to card shows all the time. And I would just ignore the vintage tables. I thought vintage was stupid because, I didn't see those guys play. I want Jerome Walton.
Right.
And even then, even with the hobby starting to take off, vintage was still stupid, ridiculously low priced compared to what it's become. So yeah, it's always been a hobby for me. I realized very early on I was never going to make money opening packs. Even that Mark Sanchez is a great example. It's pretty cool to sell a card for $40, but then you remember you paid $70 for the box. Like, it's fun.
Sure.
We're in it for fun. So.
Well, what do you collect now? What's the focus of your collection currently?
Cubs. I absolutely love Cubs. I pick up other stuff because of the economic side of it, and because I do enjoy sort of seeing how markets work. But it's Cubs, and actually I've got a few smaller PCs outside of that. Aaron Donald for the Los Angeles Rams. I love him. Christian Pulisic, probably mispronouncing his name, which is embarrassing, but the U.S. soccer player overseas who hopefully will have a bright future. For years, I've wanted soccer to be better in the United States, and I feel like it finally actually is. Even though I never played, I wasn't a soccer nut or anything. I just think it's a beautiful game. So those are the other few things I collect. I do collect the LA Kings a bit, but I just don't have space for that many sports, as much as I also think hockey is an incredible sport and absolutely love it. And then Diego Rossi, he's an LAFC guy who came here. Second year, he was 19, I think, when he came here to LA. So really love him.
Cool.
What about you, Mike? What do you collect?
I collect mainly Cubs. Also, I've got a binder of some of my favorite Cubs. Growing up in Central Illinois, it was either Cubs or Cardinals, and my grandma got me into the Cubs when I was about 8, and so I've been a Cubs fan my entire life. And so primarily Cubs. I like to put together at least one or two complete sets and go back and get some complete sets. I've been working on, and when I say one or two, like I've been working on one or two vintage sets a year. And so kind of going back through the 70s and building out vintage sets. This year, I think it's probably just going to be one. I'm working on 1969 tops right now, baseball. And I'm down to about 5 cards I think I need for that. And then, I buy and sell a lot of collections. And so as I'm sorting through these collections, I will pull out some of the superstars that I don't have yet. And so I've got kind of a binder where I kind of perpetually add the Mike Trouts of the world and some of those other superstars. I've got, growing up in Central Illinois, also Bulls were huge, when they were in their championship run throughout my high school, junior high to high school years. And so I've got, several hundred Michael Jordan, individual Michael Jordan cards and some stuff like that too. So that's kind of
the Electric Diamond 1994 Star Rookies is still a dream chase card for me.
Yeah.
I know it's a baseball card, not a basketball card technically, but
that 91 Upper Deck where he was, the SP, White Sox card was the card to have when I was growing up.
Was it technically SP though?
I don't know if it was. I think it was SP number, the number SP1 or something on the back, but
I'm just curious if anybody's ever done the analysis on that and actually figured out if it is like, there were 3 of them to every 4 of the others, even though there were 6 million of each card printed. So it's like, it's an SP. There's only 3 million in circulation.
I have a feeling that's kind of what it was like.
Yeah.
If we ran the numbers. You talked about also enjoying kind of analyzing the buying and selling aspect, right? And and you talked about that interest there, and a lot of the tweets that you make and some of the commentary that you've got on Twitter is about some of that buying and selling of cards. I was just curious when your interest in that side of the hobby started.
Well, so I think I mentioned long ago, I realized that I would never make money opening packs of cards. It was at the Catcher's Mitt on Northwest Radial Highway when I was 10 or 11 years old, opening packs of probably Collector's Choice. And I would see, the expensive cards at that time for us were $5. And it's like, well, I've opened 6 packs that were $1 each, and I haven't gotten one of those $5 cards yet. So, it just kind of dawned on me, this needs to be an entertainment budget, not a money-making budget. But at the same time, I go to Vegas. I play roulette. I play craps. I look at that as entertainment budget too, but it's really fun when you hit big, right? So I try to take that approach in. Now, my day job is that I actually do personal finance, financial planning, investment management. And so there's a lot of principles in that field that are oftentimes ignored. 90% of the industry still says I can pick better stocks than the other guy, even though all the data shows that nobody does that over a consistent period of time. Well, why is that? Well, Eugene Fama and his partner French, they won a Nobel Prize for efficient market hypothesis, which basically states that the amount of information with which you can make a decision about if you should or should not buy or sell something is known by everybody at all times. This isn't 1955 when Warren Buffett pouring through the stock market was a ledger and a piece of tape, that came out every 15 minutes with every single symbol on it. So you could spot inefficiencies then. Well, now my cell phone has all the power of an office of 30 people constantly analyzing the market. So if my cell phone now has all that power and all that information, how can you actually find inefficiencies when a million other eyeballs and machines are looking for them also? Personally, I believe this also applies to cards, but keep in mind, and I've seen this, if you can find where the eyeballs are not, because there are still places where there are not eyeballs, you may be able to find some inefficiencies.
Mm-hmm.
Classic example of that would be the first 2 weeks of Topps Now cards. Not as, people thought, well, this is new. I don't know if it's going to catch on. And so the print runs were much, much lower. I should have found the card. I forget the card. It was the second card that came out, had like the lowest print run for a number of years. And so set collectors shot the price up through, $100, $200 for a card that you could have gotten for $4.84 shipped if you had bought 20 of them. Similarly, I've had some really good success with things like I mentioned soccer. Recently, Topps Now did a debut card of a guy whose father played Reina. He's with Dortmund Borussia. I know I'm butchering soccer. Sorry, I could be butchering hockey. You pick. But 17-year-old phenom with U.S. blood, and he had his debut. And they put out a Topps Now card. Well, there were only 469 printed. And once they stopped printing, now that card goes from being widely available to being only 469 printed. So I bought the 20 pack to get the lowest price. And so it was like $89, I want to say. And I've already sold 4 of them for over $20.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm sitting on 16 of them. I've got one that I submitted to ComC that's up there. It's the only one on ComC, and it's like, so I've got a lot of control and a lot of inventory now that is, never at a loss to me. But yeah, so I look for things like that because I do think that there are inefficiencies to be spotted, but you have to think like that. You can't you can gamble on players. You can do that all you want. But who knows when Chris Bryant's a great example of this. I've got a card sitting right here, the 2014 Bowman Chrome Prospect Autos, Chris Bryant, which at one time in a 9.5 was a $400 or $500 card. Now it's a $200, maybe $300 card.
Right.
And he's great. He's a all-star. We even saw it with Mookie Betts and Rafael Devers. 2 years ago, Mookie Betts was soaring through the roof, and then last year he has a really good season. Devers has a slightly better season, and because of the publicity of the Red Sox, Devers' prices shoot up and Mookie's prices go down, whether they were overinflated before or I don't know. So it's such a fickle gambling game with players that I would much rather analyze overall markets and try and see if there are inefficiencies to spot.
I've had more of a challenge trying to focus in and predict appreciation, buying with the intent of a card appreciating at some point in the future for a lot of the reasons that you just outlined. My biggest success in creating a self-sustaining hobby has been identifying arbitrage opportunities and finding those things that some people don't value at all, but I've been able to find a platform where other people do value them. And so
that's key.
Buying cards for a penny or a half a penny a piece and knowing that there are platforms out there that I can sell them for 18 cents to a quarter a piece, put in a little bit of work to sort and organize and list, and then be able to make that margin from a penny to 18 cents or a quarter. And that's where I've had more of my success come when it pertains to making some money on cards.
Well, and that's what's intrigued me the last couple of years is that as much as I believe in efficient market theory, where does that apply? Well, that applies to eBay, where you have people that have saved searches, you have people that are searching lowest priced auctions, lowest price auctions ending soonest. How many people in the world are searching that at any given time for the card you're trying to sell? Meanwhile, the dealer who sets up at a card show, once a month and sees 12 people, maybe 20 people, most of whom are in a certain demographic, may not have a clue that mid to late 90s basketball cards have gone up, where just being a Topps Chrome rookie means it's a $2 card.
Mm-hmm.
So it's still sitting there in their 30-cent box. And this is an example I specifically had at the National last year that just sold on ComC this week. Got a Chauncey Billups in the 30-cent box, Topps Chrome rookie. I said, it's a Topps Chrome basketball card. There's this weird intrinsic demand for those right now. It's worth 30 cents there. It's worth 30 cents to list on ComC. It took, April? It took 9 months, but I sold it for $3, which after fees and cash out equals like $2.10 in my pocket. But it's $2.10 that took less work than the story about it.
Yep.
It took one move of pulling it out of a box, took a second move of putting it in my ComC submission, then took me pricing it once on ComC and then forgetting about it. So I do think that if you believe efficient market theory, you also have to believe that somebody whose market is narrowed, maybe by not being online or by not using some of these additional platforms that are out there, there are opportunities. The dime boxes would be my best friend if I didn't have twin 3-year-old boys and was able to go out to card shows every weekend.
Yes. I think, that's one of the things that I enjoy, so much about the hobby is trying to solve for some of those puzzles and trying to identify some of those things, based on a unique demographic or a unique platform that hasn't necessarily translated across platforms. That's part of the fun to me. I want to take a second to tell you about a new trading card marketplace called StarStock. They're preparing to go live in April, so keep an eye out because the launch is just around the corner. Their goal is to be a faster and cheaper solution to sell cards, and they're looking for sellers who want to be some of the first to have their cards available for sale at launch. I'm going to be testing the platform with my own submission. They're offering a 5% sales commission with no submission or processing fees. You send your cards in and they do all the work. Your cards are insured and stored in a vault, and you can have your cards shipped to you at any time. You can buy, store, or flip cards at the push of a button. If you're interested in learning more about getting involved as a seller and getting your cards onto the site for launch, contact Mike via email at mike@starstock.com. They're looking for sellers who have rookie and prospect cards of current players for the major sports. For more details, contact Mike at mike@starstock.com or go to www.starstock.com. You also touched on a second ago, one of the other things that I've found fun as I've gotten back into the hobby over the last couple of years, and that's kind of getting plugged into social media and the card community that exists on social media. Twitter specifically is another, like you said, that's probably my primary place to go to talk cards online. You're kind of known now as one of the premier card show or card personalities, with the show that you do, Go GTS Live. You're up over 11,000 Twitter followers now. When did you decide that you wanted to become a card show personality? Or maybe it's fair to say, did you decide that, or did that just happen as you got engaged? I'm curious to know kind of the backstory of your social media presence as well.
Well, this is what was actually kind of surprising, Mike, and just another one of many failures in my life that I have not been able to follow up well enough on, that you don't know this story. So let me share with you. So I moved out to LA to do entertainment. My degree specifically was in acting. I wanted to be an actor, performer. I was doing, because web series just sort of started when I first moved out here, but then I had a day job in production, 12-hour days. It was crazy for about 3 years. After I left that, I was able to start doing content creation on my own. So you can actually Google, if you want to see some even more embarrassing stuff, Google Hike Time. It was a little web series I tried to do about hiking the various canyons in LA with the idea that my character was sort of a Steve Carell, I forget the character type now, but like confident, incompetent. Mm-hmm. So, and then you do these things, and that market was so saturated at that time that it's like, my mom would watch it, the director of photography's mom would watch it, and 3 of my actor friends would watch it. And it's like, man, how do you get views on these things? And then I was just getting back into the hobby. And at the time, there were quite a few Twitter accounts that were simply like, win my cards, free cards every day. And they would just do like a card giveaway every day. And I was looking at those and I said, that's marketing. That's what I haven't had before. And I love the hobby. And I've also done so many dumb things in the hobby. So I got together with some friends and said, hey, what do you think about this idea? And they all loved it. And it was, let's make a web series about my collect fails, my failures as a collector. So that's where the name Watch the Breaks comes from too, because I'm not actually a breaker. I don't actually do breaks, but the name of the series is The Breaks. It's like how this guy can't catch a break doing these breaks. So I want to say that was like 2013, maybe 2013 through 2014. We did 10 episodes. And then every episode I would then open a box like after the episode and give away whatever the hit was. So the giveaways would help me get more views on the videos. So that's how I first sort of built up my following. But again, because I was actually engaged, like I really am a collector, conversations just kept happening, had a lot of fun with it. And then knowing that I was good with people, public speaking, interviewing others, terrible at getting interviews. Sorry, this whole thing's been all about me, Mike. But
that's the point.
I'm on the hot seat. But so GTS, when they were looking to sort of fill a small void, happened for a minute. It's hard to believe now with how much sports card content there is out there. Back then, there was Cardboard Connection Radio, and that had actually stopped. And it was like there was barely anything else. Sports Card Radio is still out, but he'll do 3 episodes one week, and then he won't do anything for 3 months. Right. There really was nothing just providing information on the hobby, just basic updates, product information, that sort of thing. So GTS said, hey, we want to do that. And they talked to Rob Bertrand and me. They wanted sort of a contrast of hosts, and they reached out. And so that's how we started Go GTS Live, which is every Thursday on YouTube, Periscope, Twitch, Twitter. And so we do that show every week as sort of a service to both hobby shops and collectors. So I know that it's a very particular type of content, but it is meant to be mostly informational. But what's really cool about that, and also talking about where the eyeballs aren't, is the amount that I've learned about the hobby outside of Topps and Panini, who of course we feature them and talk to literally talk to the heads of them sometimes, open their products, talk about their products. I've also gotten to learn about things like Historic Autographs, which is a company run by Kevin Hefner, which puts out history-based content, including autographs of, random great historical figures, presidential products, things like that. I've gotten to learn about Onyx Authenticated, a company by Lance Fisher, who's a former scout, who sort of took that approach of, there aren't as many eyes at the A ball and double A ball level as we think, and there's so much demand for those rookies, those prospects autographs. What if I could use my expertise to sort of create some products to provide more product out there, but also maybe introduce some names that you haven't seen in some other products? So he has a prospect product called Onyx Vintage, and it looks like a heritage type card, but it has all on-card autographs, and he gets a great mix of names like Wander Franco, huge names, but then also guys like Robert Pawson for the Oakland A's, who not a lot of eyeballs are on yet, but Lance swears by. And as an example, he had Matt Beatty before anybody else did. Nobody knew who Matt Beatty was. When he got called up, Onyx Authenticated was his only autograph. Yankees pitcher Jonathan Loaisiga, he was in Lance's products when he got called up, and the autographs went from being $1 autograph to being $150 autograph overnight because there were no Panini or no Topps autographs of him. So these are all things that I've learned about from the show, and it's kind of cool because the show highlights those as well as the big name brands so that collectors can learn. Like, there's a lot more out there. There's a lot that can bring you closer to the game.
I think that's one of the cool things about where we're at today in the sports card content arena is that there are shows like yours that do a great job in educating collectors on a variety of products. There's other shows that are talking about more of the financial side of things. There's shows that are talking just about the hobby side of things. There's such a wide variety of focuses in the shows that are out there right now. It's pretty interesting to me. Would you say that you've got any advice or, maybe secrets to success in building a social media following?
It all depends on what you want. I am a very centrist person in general. So, I mentioned I built my following a lot through giveaways.
Yeah.
And I constantly see people say, no, I only want true collectors or this or that. And I don't see a problem with, like, how do you get people to listen to you, though? Even if you're good, even if you're really good. I back that up. I worked for a company in the interim between entertainment and finance, where they created a product that the number one company in their field said, wow, this is the first example of this done at a high end level. Like, this is the first, like, top chef example of what we've been doing in this industry. And the owner of the company was like, okay, we're so good, I'm not going to send out samples. Shops need to call me for it. I'm not going to send them samples. They just need to buy it. Company went out of business in 12 months. So even as great as you may be at something, you still got to understand that people do need a little bit of something to bring them in. So I have no problem throwing out samples, so to speak, to get follows, and then using those follows to build a community where we all talk to each other. And I, without calling out any specific names of people because I respect their privacy, there's a lot of Twitter accounts out there with 30 or 40 followers, that tweet once every 2 weeks, that are on Twitter daily, that are listening and engaging. And I say that because I've learned not to judge people based on what I see at first. Even the quote unquote prize hounds. I've tried to mix in a lot of charitable stuff. I've tried to really support Signatures for Soldiers. I've done a couple fundraisers for people in need in the past. And some of the biggest donations I've seen to those things have come from Twitter accounts in the hobby with 20 or 30 followers, or Twitter accounts that were just completely prize hounds. So I really try to reserve judgment. Obviously, if somebody is being cruel, bitter, mean, they don't really deserve a place in the community that I want. But I think that sometimes we can rush to judgment really fast. And if we do want to try to build a community, it's like, let's accept that not everybody collects exactly the way we do. Not everybody participates in community exactly the way we do. And they still might be really great humans behind some of those accounts.
What would you say that you enjoy most about the state of the hobby right now?
Right now or in 2015, it's all the same. It's always the people. It's okay. Like, Mike, I got happy. This is on audio, but I can actually see your face on the recording. I got happy seeing you. I haven't seen you since, August of last year at the National. It's constantly the people for me. And I think that as the hobby ebbs and flows, as it goes up, as it goes down, and I'm not saying it is going down right now. Actually, the data has been really interesting to me, and how the sales prices on most things have not matched the sales prices on other industries that are out there. But whether it goes up or goes down in the future, the people will still be the same. And I would add, I don't know if I'm allowed to preach on the podcast, but to the purists out there, remember, a lot of people start by seeing a dollar sign and seeing a gamble and seeing a prospect flip. And then they realize, wow, I actually do love this, and I really love the people, and wow, I've made true friends. So give people time as well. Let's not just hate one style of thing that we don't like, or blame the hobby success for making it worse, if that makes sense. There's so much room in it right now that even with so many things being inflated, there's still great stuff to collect. I can still go out and get, I've got Gypsy Queen cards right here that came from a blaster delivered from Target, and I had a ton of fun opening them. So there is something for everybody. Don't, I don't know if we're in a bubble or if we've leveled off, but I just love the hobby right now. I love the hobby for that component, the people.
I think that's great. And I think you hit on something too there with the notion. I bristle a little bit at the notion of there being purists or pure collectors, or the view that there's no place in the hobby for attempting to make money or the business focus, because if it wasn't for the business focus, there wouldn't even be anything for us to collect to begin with, because the manufacturers aren't in this for charity, right? The card shops that exist aren't in this for charity. They're looking to make money. And if the people who are buying sealed product or buying collections and like some of it, if they weren't willing to sell or trade or move the product that they're not interested in, nobody else would be able to get the things that they're interested in either. And so
I've been saying
it is
this
a
for
give
years,
and take,
Mike.
right?
Like, I saw people complaining about the quantity of autographs Chris Bryant was signing, and generally not the big high end flippers complaining about it. Generally the general public. And I'm like, but wait, the more he signs, the more prices should actually come down to where now in 2020, I can probably go out and get a Stadium Club autograph of him at an affordable price, whereas there's no way I could get his rookie Stadium Club autograph at an affordable price that year. So it's just like, make sure that your arguments are consistent. Like if you're worried that they're producing too many autos, but you also don't like the flipping aspect, then it's like, well, too many autos supports the idea that you collect to get closer to the game. So I just encourage everybody, it's no different than when we were kids. I mentioned that I took better care of my cards than the neighbor kid. Well, the neighbor kid had all the nice cards, but he put them all in a shoebox, and the other neighbor kid was the one that was going around cheating people out of 1986, Jose Canseco's by giving them 100 cards for that one, Yep. The flipping was always there. The taking advantage of, sadly, has always been there. So let's focus on what we can control and what aspects we can bring to the hobby and make our community within the hobby what we want it to be.
One other thing that I was thinking about that I would be curious to get your thoughts on, you and I are in similar situations, cards and, whether it's content creation or the buying and selling of cards are not our primary. They're not the way that we pay the bills, right? And so we're balancing a day job, we're balancing our hobby and our interest in cards, and we're balancing family. And I was curious if you had any thoughts on or advice to other people out there on balancing that day job, their primary paycheck, as well as cards and family, and keeping those all in proper alignment.
Really, you should ask my wife that question, if I am keeping them all in proper alignment. In fact, I think it's kind of funny that you that anybody sees me as I guess personality is right. Influencer is definitely not right. But I joke that the reason I do go GTS live is so that I have the excuse to stay in the hobby. It's like, well, hey, honey, I do have to do that web show. And, I'm part time with GTS, but I do get, a decent enough per hour, I guess I would say, on that to make it justifiable. So for me, it's actually another one of my excuses when it comes to, but wait, how could you buy that and flip that? You bought those mega boxes and flipped them and kids didn't get them. And it's like, look, I'm sorry, but flipping those 15 mega boxes allowed me to open the other 5 that I would have opened on my own. It made it a wash financially to open the other 5, which then allowed my wife and my family unit to be okay with the fact I was spending money there, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a lot of internal systems for that, but also, I would say it is important to be very open with your spouse about your spending in general. As a financial advisor, I have a specialty in working with people going through divorce, a CDFA, Certified Divorce Financial Analyst. And between what I do for people and what the therapists do for people when we're able to get them to talk to one, it's almost like not all, don't overblow this. There's obviously physical safety issues at times and just emotional safety, but a lot of conflict in relationships starts from just not being transparent about money, not being on the same page about money. Usually, if you're not on the same page about money, you're probably not on the same page about other things. So if you do have a family, if that is something that you're balancing in addition to the hobby, I would highly recommend that you find ways to at least inform or, keep your spouse on the same page. They don't need to be in the room breaking with you. They don't need to be understand every single card, but give them some level of comfort about your level of being in it. So it's not just, oh, that thing that he does, he's in the room and I don't know what he's doing. And can lead to a very healthy relationship. And then balancing it with your day job and with your work, that's a whole nother story. That's what your boss should be telling you. I don't know. Was that helpful?
Yeah, I think that's good. I think that's a lot for some folks to think about and to take away. So appreciate that.
And I will say too, my kids are young, so I'm pretty excited. And I love hearing, if you're on Twitter, shoot me a tweet if you're listening to this at Watch the Breaks and tell me if your kids are a little older, if you've been able to bridge some of that by bringing them into your hobby as well. Because mine are still too young to do that. And so I'm kind of nervous thinking about, if they're 8 years old and they just say, no, I hate cards. How do you deal with that? So I'd be curious if people have sort of been able to find that balance by having their kids enjoy their hobby.
I have two daughters, 9 and 11, and my 11-year-old really could care less at all about cards. My 9-year-old, though, she's got a little bit of an entrepreneurial streak in her. And so she's had a lot of fun. Last year was the first time we tried flipping some stuff from garage sales and had some success on buying some stuff at garage sales and flipping it. And she got, a big chunk of that money. And so that lit a little spark in her eye. And so I set up at a smaller monthly show, and she loves to come with me to the show because of that buying and selling aspect and getting to see us make a little money, from the card show. And so she's not so much into the collecting the cards for the cards perspective, but she enjoys the process of taking these cards and then selling them, and then knowing we'll go out to dinner or we'll go, use it for helping offset our family vacation or some of those types of things. So she enjoys that aspect too. That's made her a little more interested in the cards.
That's awesome. And a perfect example, because at 9, maybe not the biggest fan of one sport or one team yet, because still developing so much personality.
Right.
But maybe 10 years from now, the cards combined with now, oh, hey, I really love this team, or I went to this college and this player went to this college. You could see that transition happening to the other type of collector. It's there now. The door is open. So I love that. That's really cool.
Cool. Well, tell us, if people don't already follow you, tell people where they can follow you and pay attention to the content that you're producing.
So I would recommend Twitter. If you're listening to this and you're not on Twitter, it's a great community for sports card collectors. I'm on Instagram and a few other platforms. If you search my name, you'll probably find me. Happy to connect on LinkedIn as well. But the best one is Twitter, twitter.com/watchthebreaks. And don't worry, I won't try to sell you breaks.
There you go. Well, thanks again for coming on the show today. I really enjoyed having a chance to get to know a little bit more about your background. Because like I said, by the time that I came on, you were already well established in the hobby, and I was new or a newly returning collector. So this is the first chance I had to really kind of hear more about your background. So thanks again for coming on.
Well, I'm honored to be on because I think I've said this in tweets before, but just face to face, Mike, I really respect your podcast. I respect your approach, and I also think that you have the best voice in the hobby for a radio show.
Well, there you go. Thank you very much. Well, thanks again to Ivan. I just really appreciate him taking a few minutes to talk cards and to talk life. And I also really appreciate 241 Doc and G Davis RC, who left a couple 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts. I love getting that feedback. I love hearing about what connects with you about the podcast. And so please let me know what you'd like to hear more of, what you'd like to hear less of. I'd really like the feedback. Also, reach out to me at my email, waxpackhero@gmail.com. Follow me on Twitter at @TheMikeSummer. And also check out the Hobby Hotline, our live call-in show that we do every Saturday morning with a bunch of other podcast hosts. You can follow that on Twitter at Hobby Hotline. That's all I have for you today, so I'll catch you next time.